Our Father in heaven, we are thankful for the opportunity that we have as leaders to learn more and to understand the process so that we can help our candidates and ourselves as well to learn how to do things the right way and be successful in our win. Thankful for Tony to be on board to help and assist with this, and of course, our leader, Tamara Mackay, and we are grateful and thankful for everything that and the opportunities that we have to be part of this. Please open our minds that we may understand and be able to be receptive and to also to be able to retain what we learn and then be able to help our candidates and help our party to move forward. We thank you for all that we have and the blessings that we are for to have. And we say this humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, Tony, the floor is yours.
Question sent to me was, what's the biggest reason people get fined? That's a pretty easy one. Definitely, it's when they file campaign spending reports late. I think you need to first understand that the first campaign spending report for candidates that file nomination papers by April 25th is on May 2nd. Okay, so it really depends on when you file your nomination papers. If you file your nomination papers after April 25th, of course, no later than June 7th, which is the last day, then your first campaign spending report is due on July 14. So you can insert some strategy into that. Like if you have big numbers and you want to show that you're viable, then by all means, file your nomination papers early so you can show that on May 2nd. If you want to kind of keep your cards and close to you, then of course, file after April 25th. So your first report comes in on July 14th. Ballots have to be out to the voters by July 27th. So that means that the ballots will probably be mailed around July 25th, 26th timeframe. So as you can see, if you file on July 14, people will not have too much time to look at your stuff before actually getting the opportunity to vote. Okay, the second low-hanging fruit violation for us is definitely disclaimers. You have to have your disclaimers on all banners and signs. You have to have it on your mailers, on your website, and all of your Facebook boosts. So if you're boosting, you definitely need to have that name and address. So paid for by, the name of your committee, and the full address of the committee. That's all that's required on the disclaimer. Disclaimers are not required on what we call sundry items. So those are like magnets, pins, t-shirts, any type of small thing, or a flyer is not required. But those are our two most common areas, problem areas where we assess fines. The second question is there a form to submit monthly? If you haven't registered yet, that's the first report you will be filing is called an organizational report. Once you register, you basically only have two types of reports you have to file after that: disclosure reports and late contribution reports. Okay, the late contribution report becomes optional if you don't have any late contributions. Okay, those are defined as contributions of more than 500 that's received in a given period. So that's all on your reporting schedule. Have you all been to our website yet?
Yes.
They have? Okay. Because everything I'm sharing with you is on our website. Have you accessed our candidate guidebook?
The pages and pages and pages.
Yeah. I should have started with this. There's two guidebooks that you should take a look at. It's the guidebook for candidate committees. You said you sent these out, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then the treasurer's guidebook.
Correct.
Which is a suggested method for keeping your records. And then because all of your campaign spending reports are filed electronically on what we call the candidate filing system, we have a manual called the candidate filing system manual. That's it, just those three. Okay, next question. As far as max contributions, this is on a per person basis. It really depends on what office you're running for or your candidate's running for. So let me break that down for you. So for candidate, governor, lieutenant governor, or OHA, it's $6,000 per person. For state senate or Honolulu City Council, it's $4,000 per person. If it's state house or neighbor island county council, that would be Maui, Hawaii Island, or Kauai, it's $2,000 per person. Okay. When we talk about contribution limits, that's all. The limit is an aggregate for the candidate's election period. So right now we are in the 2022 election period. Since your campaigns are new, I'm assuming, I'll just tell you when the election period ends. So from whenever you started your campaign to November 8, 2022, that's when those limits apply. So it's either 6,000, 4,000, or 2,000. Okay. The other thing you need to be conscientious about is if a company gives and an individual that's the president or the owner of the company also gives in their personal capacity, we treat those two entities as one entity.
Oh.
So whenever you see a company give, you want to make sure you know who the officers are. You can use DCCA, or you can just ask them themselves and make sure the owner or president doesn't also give. That's another common problem. Okay, as far as out-of-state donations, those are capped at 30% of your contribution, of your total contributions. Okay, so if you collected $10,000 in contributions, your non-resident contributions cannot exceed $3,000. What do we mean when we say non-resident? It's basically someone that's not registered to vote, or if they were to register, they would not qualify to register to vote here in Hawaii.
So, Tony, real quick with that, you said 30% of your total campaign contribution. What if the out-of-state donations come in before you get any campaign contributions?
Okay, so the 30% will only matter because it's 30% for the election period. The election period ends on November 8th.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're at 100% now. There's no violation. It doesn't matter till November 8th.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're over, we have something in our filing system. If you click on validate, have you guys been in our filing system?
Have you guys been to the site in the filing system?
No.
Okay.
We have 6 different validations that you can use to check your data to make sure you're in compliance. One of them is the non-resident contribution validation. Okay, so what it does is it checks your total contributions, so your non-resident contributions up against your total contributions. And how does our system know that that a contribution is a non-resident contribution? So when you enter it in the system, there's a checkbox. If it's non-resident, you check it, and that validation uses that checkbox and everything else to give you a percentage. So you can check that anytime. On November 9th, you check it. You have all your contributions entered in the system up to November 8th, and you're over. That's when it becomes a problem. And the law gives you 30 days to return the excess percentages. Okay. Can the GOP donate directly to a candidate? The answer to that is yes. up to the $6,000, $4,000, or $2,000 limit.
The GOP can, the party, we can
Correct.
directly donate to a candidate.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
So because the Maui County branch is part of the state party, anything given by the Maui County branch and the state party is aggregated. We treat the two, the Maui and the state, as one. So they wouldn't be able to, both of them wouldn't be able to max out. As far as in-kind contributions, the GOP in-kind contributions are aggregated with monetary contributions.
Mm,
So you must take those into account.
okay.
The only time an in-kind contribution is not aggregated is if the GOP runs an ad, what we call an uncoordinated ad. And then on the ad, it would say paid for by Maui Republican Party with the address, and it would say without the approval and authority of the candidate.
Okay.
Yeah, there can be no coordination. Okay, we call those independent ads, uncoordinated ads. The party can spend unlimited amounts in uncoordinated ads. Members of the GOP be on a candidate's campaign team and or be a treasurer? The answer to that is yes. The only people that would not be able to be on a candidate committee's organizational report chart would be officers of the GOP. That would be the chair. Who's the chair? Lynn, right?
For the state, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Whoever's on the Hawaii Republican Party's organizational report, we call those officers. Only those individuals would not be able to serve on a candidate committee.
So me being the chair of Maui County, I can.
You're not on the organizational report, so we don't consider you an officer.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Should a form be completed for every fundraiser? If you have a fundraiser in which you have tickets or a suggested contribution of more than $25, you have to file what we call a fundraiser notice prior to the fundraiser. Okay, so we actually, when we get these, we post these on our website. So if you want to see if your opponent has had any fundraisers, you can definitely check that on our website. We also tweet fundraiser notices. If you want to follow our tweets, just go to our website. On the homepage on the right-hand side, you can see all the tweets. Just let me go over a couple of tips then. First one is try to keep your information on the organizational report current. That would be addresses and phone numbers, because we use those to get in contact with you. As far as the bank account has to be in the name of the candidate or candidate committee. That would be your Friends of committee. Only the treasurer and deputy treasurers are authorized to receive contributions and make expenditures on behalf of the committee. So if your candidate is handling money, making deposits, accepting contributions, you should at least list the candidate as a deputy treasurer. Okay, you can appoint up to 5 deputy treasurers, and the names and addresses and phone numbers of these deputy treasurers are entered into the organizational report. Be careful with debit cards. We always run into problems with debit cards, especially if the debit card is in the hand of the candidate. If they are going to use debit cards, make sure they get receipts and that you keep that as part of your record keeping. Okay. As far as reimbursements, if your candidate goes out and pays for something using their personal credit card, or anyone for that matter, you should make as your policy, no receipt, no reimbursement. Okay. Then as far as reporting reimbursements, you would not report who was paid. So in this case, the committee would be paying the person being reimbursed. On your campaign spending report, you would report the vendor name and address of where the money was spent. Okay, so that's the transparency that we need. Okay, all the way to where the money went. As far as I already talked about the types of reports that you guys have to file. So as far as disclosure reports are concerned, those are the frequent ones that you have to file. I told you that your first report could be either May 2nd or July 14. So the easiest way to track when your deadlines are, we have a printable schedule. We have a downloadable calendar that you can import into your phone. But the easiest way, and really the only way you really need, is to log into the candidate filing system, click on administration, and then click on reporting deadline. Okay. The Campaign Spending Commission will populate that page based on what track your candidate is on. There's all these different tracks. We know what the tracks are. We put the deadlines on that screen. That's really the only place you need to go. Please file your report on time. We send out at least 4 to 5 email reminders, and we use the email that was entered on the electronic filing form that was filed with our office. Okay. So just watch for those reminders and try to file early. Okay. So is this the first time that these candidates are running, Tamara?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you guys aren't familiar with the electioneering communication statements that were required last year. Okay, so I won't mention that because the legislature repealed that requirement. I already talked about fundraiser notices required prior to the fundraiser. One more note on that, maybe you can go back to your notes on this and add this. If you're having a fundraiser on the weekend, it must be filed by 4:30 p.m. on the Friday prior to the weekend. You have to deposit contributions within 7 days of receipt. Contributions come in the form of checks, money orders. If they do come in cash, any cash contributions of $100, the law requires that you give them a receipt. My recommendation is that you give a receipt for all contributions, regardless of whether they're cash or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good policy to have. Okay, now let me talk about contributions received online via PayPal, WinRed, Stripe, or whatever you may be using. That is the method, the preferred method of receiving contributions nowadays. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you're not automating the transfers into your bank account, you want to make sure that whatever system you're using, when a contribution comes in, you get an email, because those contributions need to be deposited within 7 days. This is a common problem we have, where committees let the contribution just sit in those queues without transferring it to their bank account. If it's not deposited within 7 days, we fine $25 for every contribution that's not deposited within that 7 days. So if you can imagine, if you have a lot of contributions sitting in that queue, that could add up.
Would that be we've started to use Eventbrite, and they have a feature on it saying that to, deposit after the event, should I just have the monies go directly after they pay for their ticket, or is it okay to wait for the monies to go after the event has completed?
As long as you transfer within 7 days
Of the event, or when they pay for their ticket?
When they made the payment for the ticket.
Okay.
So if the payment for the ticket came in really early, then you might not want to wait until after the event, but you can figure that out. Yeah.
Okay.
Just remember the 7-day rule.
Okay, because I did that. I'm glad that we clarified that. I did that. We had an event and I held the feature to when the event happened. And then the next day, well, within 3 days after the event, it went in. So
Okay.
I'll change that from now on. Okay, good to know.
Okay, 7 days. Talked about non-resident contributions. Okay, as far as false name and anonymous contributions, there's a serious consequence for these two. These two are Class C felonies. So what do I mean? What do I mean by false name? So if the money belongs to me and I give it to somebody else to give to the candidate, and the contribution is reported in the name of that somebody else. In fact, we have a case tomorrow on our agenda dealing with false name. The contribution needs to be reported in the name of the ultimate source. That would be me. Okay. Anonymous contributions are prohibited. We get this question a lot though. What about calabash bowls? You can have a calabash bowl at your events, but at least 10 people have to put money in the calabash bowl. And the total amount in the bowl has to be less than $100.
Mhm.
Okay, so you got to have somebody monitoring that. Of course, you're going to take out the checks because you have names and addresses on there. Okay, but it has to be less than $100. Contributions from state or county contractors are prohibited. How do you know if they're a state or county contractor? The best way is just to ask them, especially if it's a business. Okay. State or county contractors include sole proprietors.
Brett
You have a
has his hand
contract?
raised. Brett, did you have a question in regards to that?
Yes, Tony, even if they're making those contributions as an individual,
Good question, Brett. If they're making the contributions as an individual, so these could be officers or employees of the contracting company, those are allowed. Those are allowed. Subcontractors can also give as long as they don't have their own contracts with the state or county. Okay, so I kind of touched a little bit on non-monetary contributions. They have the same caps as monetary contributions. If your committee is receiving any non-monetary contributions, if the person has the receipt that has the value on it, they can just give that to you. If not, the reasonable market value is sufficient. Okay.
Are these guidelines basically the same for the GOP as well? Or, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
it is. Okay, your campaigns are allowed to make charitable donations. I mean, do you want me to even touch on that? I mean, you kind of want to save your money to run for campaign, to run for office. That normally doesn't happen until after they win.
Mm,
Or you just want to know as an FYI.
sure.
Charitable donations, there's 3 categories that you can give under charitable. The second category is you can give money to public schools and public libraries. And then the third category is you can award scholarships to individuals attending college.
Would that be like the money, if there's money left over after their campaign, that they can give that money to a charity?
You can also do it before the campaign.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it now. But once you file nomination papers, you cannot give charitable donations.
Okay. Brett, did you have a question?
yeah, I just want, I know Tony knows this. I guess there's legislation going in to try to raise that amount. I'm under the impression, my personal opinion, if I give money to a candidate, the last thing I want him to do is him or her to do is give it to their favorite charity, because that's not why I gave them the money. I just find it kind of odd that somebody would put something in for legislation to raise the amount that they can give them. After the campaign, as they close their accounts and do whatever they're going to do with their money, that's one thing. But running up to the election, yeah, it's just my
I
personal
agree.
thought.
We've always tried to get that out of the law because we consider that seeding the community. It really gives incumbents an unfair advantage. But yeah, that they killed that bill, Brett, unfortunately.
How can we get the bill reinstated? How
Sorry?
can we get it reinstated?
Oh, they killed the bill to increase the limits. So let me give you the limits. So donations to charities is 2 times the amount of the candidate's contribution limit. So if it's 2,000, 4,000, or 6,000, 2 times that amount. Public schools or public libraries, same thing, 2 times the amount of the candidate's contribution limit. Then awarding scholarships, 2 times the amount. So if you're running for governor, you have a $6,000 contribution limit. Your charitable donation cap is 12,000, 12,000, 12,000.
Okay.
That's a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
I would like to add again, if you're a candidate and you have 2 times the amount somebody can donate to you left at the end of your campaign, yeah, you probably have done something wrong with your campaign because you probably didn't win either.
Yeah.
So
Brett knows. Okay, let me talk about 2 fundraiser tickets. Yeah, this is a strategy the Democrats like to use in the House. If you're having a fundraiser, candidates can purchase, using their campaign funds, they can purchase 2 fundraiser tickets for each of your fundraisers. Okay, as long as the total aggregate of fundraiser tickets don't exceed your contribution limit. So what do? A House candidate will have a fundraiser with tickets of $1,000 per person. Their colleague in the House will purchase 2 tickets, and that's how they pass the money around. And so you have a lot of Democrats that run unopposed. So the candidates that have heated races, what they do is that candidate that has a heated race will have a fundraiser. And these candidates with no opponents, that's why you guys got to put opponents in every race if you guys can.
Okay.
Keep them preoccupied. Brett knows this. Anybody. Otherwise, they're gonna do this, and they're gonna concentrate their strategy or their resources to this one candidate that has a tough race. Okay. So same with you. If you're having a fundraiser, candidates can purchase fundraiser tickets to your fundraiser. Okay. Any questions? Any questions on anything so far? I'm just kind of some common things here.
I'll give a couple questions that in the chat is one is, if we run as a slate, can we use the same person to file our reports?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Per the donation, when you said the donation amount, is that per donation or per year?
That is an aggregate.
Okay.
2 times the amount is an aggregate, and it applies for the candidate's election period. Talk about election period. It's either a 2 or a 4-year period. If you go to our website and you click on contribution limits on the top, it'll not only give you the limits for each office, it'll give you the election period. It'll define it right there on that page for you.
Hawaii.gov/campaign.
Yeah, so these donation caps apply to the same election period you're gonna find on that website.
Perfect. What are some expenses that do not qualify as an expense?
Personal expenses, of course.
Eating out, food.
If it's campaign related, that would be okay. And let me give you the principle. We call it the irrespective rule. Okay, if the expense would have existed irrespective of the candidate running for office, in other words, the candidate has to eat, right? The candidate has to pay rent. If the expense would have existed irrespective of the candidate running for office, then we would consider that those expenses to be personal expenses. So just keep that irrespective rule in mind.
Gotcha.
If you ever want to see what people get charged with, just go to the office of the CSC's website, look at the minutes from previous meetings of all the cases that they do of people that have not done the due diligence of at least calling the CSC to find out if what they're doing is legal or not. There's a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, the most recent one that comes to mind, I think it's either Canela Ing or I think it was Canela Ing was using his campaign funds to pay his rent.
And haircuts and theater tickets and on and on and on.
Oh, boy.
It's fine. He's good to go. Wants to run again on him. Okay. Let me see here. You guys got any questions on disclaimers? I know I touched on that earlier. Pretty clear.
Yeah, maybe you could repeat that one more time, because I know that a lot of times, I mean, I'm guilty of it to forget the disclaimers and how important it is.
Okay. Yeah, I had to call BJ Penn's campaign because he had some banners out that didn't have the name and address on there.
Mm-hmm.
So if some of your candidates already have banners and signs out there, we just tell them just print something with the name and address and stick it on the sign.
Does it have to be visible on the front or can it be on the back?
You know, we would prefer to see it on the front, Brett. But if they were to put it on the back, there's really nothing we can do as far as the statute is concerned. It just needs to be on the sign, but we prefer it to be on the front.
Okay.
So are you saying that it should be visible? Because if you say visible, then it has to be in the front.
The law doesn't say that. It just says it needs to be on there. You're gonna notice some signs, the font's gonna be really small. As long as it's on there, Patty, as long as it's on there.
And so like when we put out anything that we are doing, we need to put paid for by the Maui County GOP with our address. And one more thing you said.
Yeah, for you guys need to add whether it's with or without the approval of the candidate.
Okay. And do we need to put a disclaimer on there if it's non-candidate related? If it's just a fundraiser for the party?
Yeah, what like on a website?
On flyers or banners?
It would be a good idea to have it on there.
Okay. Just do it no matter what.
Yeah, put it on there.
Okay.
Okay, let me see here. Any of your...
And I agree with Tony. I don't think there's anything in the rules or the law, but it's always good, you know, especially in the election season, to include that, you know, it's not for any particular candidate.
P.O. box is okay.
P.O. box is okay. Yes.
Great.
Okay, let me talk a little bit about loans.
Oh, yes, loans. That's right. We didn't even have a question. I know somebody asked me about loans. Perfect.
Okay, loans are allowed. There's 4 types of loans that your committee can receive. The first one is loans from the candidate. The candidate can loan their own campaign unlimited amounts of money. Okay, so if your candidate is spending money, I would suggest you report it as a loan. In the event you have money to repay the candidate, at least it'll be on the books as a loan. If the campaign doesn't have sufficient money to repay the candidate, you can always convert that. You can always forgive the loan, and you can convert that to an other receipt. Okay, so initially, you can report it two ways. You can report it as a loan, or you can report it as an other receipt. Okay, so if you go the loan route and eventually he forgives it, you can then convert it to an other receipt. So what's the difference? An other receipt means the candidate has no wishes of being reimbursed. Okay, so that's on Schedule C
Okay.
in our system. Loan means the candidate hopes and wishes to get reimbursed. That's the difference. That's Schedule D in the system. I suggest you put everything on D. Any loan in excess of $100, you also have to do an executed loan document, and there will be prompts in our system to prompt you on that. Okay, so that's the first type of loan. The second type of loan, number 2, is loans from a financial institution, a bank. I don't typically see these. If you got to mortgage your home to run for office, I would think twice about running for office. Okay. The third type of loan is immediate family loans. Okay, an immediate family member can give the campaign $50,000 aggregate in loans and contributions. Okay, I didn't tell you about that. I just talked about the $6,000, $4,000, and $2,000 limit. Immediate family member can give your campaign $50,000. Okay, so if you have a rich immediate family member and they give you $50,000, because it's an aggregate, you're tapped out in that category. No other immediate family member can give you any more money. Okay, you guys need the definition of immediate family? Oh, that's understood.
Is it
Actually, if
grandfathered?
we could have that definition, please.
Oh, there's,
Spouse, Amanda, spouse, parent, grandparent, brother or sister of the candidate, the children of the candidate, and we have in our law reciprocal beneficiaries, and the spouses of those individuals. So the spouse of the brother, spouse of the sister. It does not include the in-laws or the spouse's family. Okay, so spouse, parent, grandparent, brother, sister, children, and reciprocal beneficiary. Okay, $50,000 aggregate. Okay, the fourth and last type of loan is what a category we call other entity or other persons. That's $10,000 aggregate. So if you have a rich person, they give you 10,000, no other person can give you any more money. Okay, that's the only type of loan that has a repayment requirement of 1 year. Okay, we keep a close watch on this, 1 year. That's our 4 types of loans. Let me talk about some information on our website, because I'm sure you guys are getting this training regarding doing opposition research.
mhm.
You kind of want to know what you're up against, what your candidate's doing. So if you go to our website, you click on Candidate Committee, and you click on Browse Data. Okay, on that page, it allows you to look at campaign spending reports filed by other candidates. This is where your reports will be as well. It allows you to look at fundraiser notices. And it also allows you to export data into Excel. So if you wanted to export or look at contribution data going all the way back to 2008, we have it in a downloadable Excel file for you. It's all on that page. Okay, if you want to look at past elections and how much was spent by winners, this gives you an idea of how to set your budget and your financial goals. on our website, click on election summaries. You can look at past elections all the way back 10 years, I think, and see what your opponent has done in the past. Kind of gives you an idea, allows you to strategize and know where you need to be. The average it takes to win a House race is about $40,000 to $45,000. Average to win a state Senate seat is about twice that amount. Is that helpful? Tamara,
Very
you kinda
helpful.
see that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the average.
Would that
If
be
you-
based on Oahu, or, since, I mean, those numbers, since there's like 1.2 million people there, would you say that would go the same for neighbor islands as well?
That just statewide. It's an
Okay.
average statewide. All 25 Senate, all 51. Yeah, statewide.
Okay.
Okay, last thing. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. Covered quite a bit.
Mhm.
If your campaign is interested in public funding, that's something totally different. Okay, just call me. I kind of don't want to dive into that because you guys are going to leave here with a headache if I do. I'm just going to stop right there.
Okay.
Just
Perfect.
call.
Everything changes with that if you decide to go with public funding, because that limits the amount you can actually raise on your own also. So any candidate I've been talking to, we've been telling, we highly recommend them not to do that because of the limitations and the reporting requirements are a lot more stricter, I believe, also.
That's
Do you
correct.
guys know what public funding
I was
is?
just going to ask that question.
Okay.
It's money from the state, so you have to jump through some hoops. So what Brett's talking about is you have to voluntarily agree to a spending cap. And that's a big reason why candidates that are serious will not participate in this program, because you have to sign an affidavit saying you're going to stay under the cap.
Mm.
If you can, then by all means participate in the program. So the way it works is you need to raise a certain amount of money, small dollar contributions of $100 or less from Hawaii residents. You need to raise up to a minimum amount. You don't get any money until you raise a minimum. Okay. So for House, it's 1,500. For Senate, it's 2,500. So you get 15 people or 25 people to give you $100. The state will give you 1,500 or 2,500. You continue to raise these small dollars up to a maximum amount. The state will give you up to that max. The money comes from, on your tax forms,
Mm.
the checkoff. Do you want $3 to go to the Hawaii Election Campaign Fund? Those monies go into this fund to fund public funding for candidates. Okay. A very small percentage of candidates actually apply for public funding. I think in 2020, we had like 5% of the 300 candidates that ran.
Wow.
So just know that it's available, and that's basically how it runs, Patty.
So how advantageous is that when you say there's only 5 people that use that program?
About 5%. It allows you to get at least one mailer out, and
Oh.
that could be the difference. But that spending cap is something you got to look at, limit.
How about the unions? How does the unions play in any of this,
In the public funding program,
or in anything? In anything?
we have about 250 political action committees. We call them non-candidate committees. Unions are well funded because the money comes from membership dues. So they're able to contribute probably to your Democratic opponent,
Yes.
honestly.
Yeah.
You're going to see unions up and down their contribution report. So yeah, they play a big role in Hawaii politics. I'm sure Brett can give a.
So my question on that is that how do we change things if the unions have such a powerful pull? Because we had a opponent who did run and he was mentioning about that, try to talk with the unions to help you because they have the mailing system, 2, 3 mailers, and that's they'll be sending it all out to their people, but their people usually going to be Democrats anyway. So you look at that, it's like, okay, how is that going to be, advantageous to you? Because you're putting this is a limit on so much you can collect and get donation from, but yet the union seems to be unlimited.
Correct. I wouldn't rule out completely that the unions don't give to Republicans, because they do, they do give to Republicans. A lot of times it just comes down to asking.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
You first.
yeah, unions do give to Republicans, honestly. Brett,
Okay.
you see that, right?
Shopo gives the Republicans. They're pretty fair with everything, and I'm sure others have given to them. The biggest thing, like Tony says, you got to ask, and that's probably the hardest part for a candidate is getting in front of a union's political committee that makes the recommendations for endorsements. I think the big thing about the non-candidate committees is there's no coordination between the candidates. Candidate and the non-candidate committee, whether it be a union or not, you can't coordinate with them on anything. So the candidates have to be very, very aware of that. And my experience has been any non-candidate committee that is supporting of a candidate, they won't confer with the candidate, but they will do all the attacks on the opponent of the candidate. Case in point, we saw it when Ben Cayetano was running for the mayor of Honolulu. The carpenters union with their political action committee really went hard after Ben Cayetano, and really it was pretty dirty, if you remember that. But that was a non-candidate committee. I assume they weren't coordinating with the candidate they were supporting. Who knows? Unless they get caught, you're never gonna know. But that's what usually the non-candidate committees do. Is they're the bulldogs that attack the opponents of the candidates they're supporting.
These non-candidate committees that Brett is referring to, these are the unions. So you got to know who they are. So how can you find out who they are? Go to my website, click on non-candidate committees, click on browse data. If you need help, you can call me. We have a list of the non-candidate committees, their organizational reports, who their chair and treasurer is with contact information. And you can also see how much cash on hand they have. As recently as they have a report due next week, Monday, that'll cover activity up to February 26. So you kind of want to know how much cash on hand they have if you ask them, so they kind of lie to you and say, "Oh, we don't have money." You will know you have money. Anyway, you gotta ask.
I've never heard of unions not having money.
There we go. The other thing is super PACs. We have 23 registered super PACs here in the state of Hawaii. On your island, so Patty and Amanda, you all are from Maui.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we have some pretty active super PACs on your island that raise and spend money for the Maui Council races, and they're all connected to Ohana Coalition. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So they're very organized. I just know that they're out there. So there may be, you heard Brett talk about uncoordinated ads. Super PACs can spend unlimited amounts of money. So just know that you may not only be running against a Democratic candidate, you may also be running against Super PAC spending. Okay, so just be aware of that. So there may be hit ads, there may be mailers slamming your candidate, and their resources are pretty good. So just keep that in mind. Being blindsided by a Super PAC.
Okay, so I don't know how this correlates, but I remember meeting with the Mayor Apana because I was fighting the drugs on my street, on the Maui street. And I had to approach the county council, and they forgave this man of his fines, came out to like $142,000 from the corporation council. So when I met with him the next week, he said he forgave the man the fine. So I said, how did you find this man? And he says, well, I just picked up the phone and called him up. And I says, well, it must have been a personal friend. Long story short, after that meeting, I found it was a personal friend. Didn't that contributed $30,000 to his campaign. So
Okay. Okay. Yep. I remember chemo.
yeah, oh, you do.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember chemo.
One-term server. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we? How does that kind of stuff happen?
So the way that happens is what we call they bundle contributions. So you have 5 or 6 individuals in the company, and how can we tell they're all from the same company? Because the law requires you guys to report the employer and occupation of contributions that are 1,000 or more. So we kind of cluster them. So when we were doing the investigation that Kimo Apana was caught up in, we found that these individuals were all getting reimbursed on the back end. They were calling it Christmas bonuses, birthday bonuses. Those are all Class C felonies. That's what Kimo was getting caught in. We put a stop to that. Remember those Jeremy Harris investigations? His name was in the paper.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was all Kimo Apana. Anyway, that's how they do it.
Good to know.
Good to know. Makes it so hard for a good person to run for office when you're running against all these crooks. Sorry, I don't know what
So
we're finding
we need
the
good people.
to try to run, and then they're up against. I mean, I'm my head is going really dizzy right now. Just all the things you're giving me. I'm going, how are these guys going to really get money to even try to run? When you even said to try to get everybody in each seat. We're looking at the money's on top.
Patty, that's why a candidate must have a good treasurer.
I remember saying that.
Candidate's responsible for getting the donations. The treasurer is going to keep them out of jail. But
That's correct.
And I'm sure Tony will agree. Even though the treasurer may be the one that's filing the report, the candidate must look at the report every single time it's filed.
That's correct.
Because the candidate's on the hook also, but the treasurer is going to be the big one.
Okay, so just to keep your sanity, instead of waiting for the deadline to enter stuff into the system, just try to keep up with it as it goes along and enter things into the system. But sometimes you're going to have a cutoff date and the report's going to be due 5 days after that. So just kind of do it
Every day. Do it
as it
every
happens,
day.
a little bit at a time, just so you don't stress out. We're all busy, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a suggestion. If you do it that way, it'll save you a lot of stress.
That is a good suggestion, Tony, and that's exactly what I did when I was running the campaign for Brian Jeremiah. Every once a week, I would put in all the donations that we received into the system, because it's easier to go back and correct it before you file the report after you put it in than to worry that you put it in wrong to begin with. So
Amen.
Okay. Yep.
That-
We don't
that's
see
why
what you.
that's why it's important for the candidate to review it, because there might be some things that they're aware of that didn't get to the treasurer. That happens.
Very
Okay.
good.
What you enter into the system, we don't see it until you hit the file button.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
So if you're making mistakes as you enter in, you can fix it. We don't see it.
I would just like to ask one more question, Tony. This is big picture, 30,000-foot level. It has nothing to do with the candidates. Do you know when I don't know. I don't know if it's codified in law or CSC rules about the parties having one entry for all their, Maui County, Honolulu County, Kauai, the districts, the precincts. I know some of our older members remember back in the day where, a precinct or a district could have a their own bank account and their own reporting. And at some point that changed so that it was the individual political parties submitting as one. You know when that
Yeah.
maybe when that happened? Or if it's in
I
law, or if it's codified in the rules.
Brett, that happened in 2008 when we rolled out our electronic filing system.
Dwindling.
Was passed requiring reports to be filed electronically. We felt that because it was online now, anyone from anywhere could enter data into the system. So that's why we issued it's an advisory opinion, Brett, in 2008.
Okay.
But we have our own bank account.
Yeah, that's fine.
Bank accounts are fine. It's the
Okay.
reporting.
Okay,
The good thing
gotcha.
about-
Okay.
Just think about it like the good thing about Maui's activity being incorporated into the state report. It's actually less transparency because the Maui candidates will not know what activity is specific to Maui, but it's all kind of jumbled in, yeah. So they won't really know how active you guys are, how active your bank account is, but it's incorporated with the reporting of everything else. Yeah, we don't require on the state report to say, okay, this is Maui's activity, this is Kauai's activity, it's all kind of just grouped together. So you can kind of run a little bit more under the radar that way.
My personal thought was, if Honolulu County or Maui County raises money, when the state reports it, they should indicate somewhere in that in the report the transaction, that it's a Kauai or Maui or Oahu, just for their own personal.
Yep.
Be able to tell, but it is.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah,
That's
we
not
don't
me.
require it now. Yeah.
Tony, you scold me if I'm giving you guys too much work. If you have any questions, always call CSC before you do anything. If you got any questions, you can't get an answer that you think is the times that I've dealt with the CSC, Tony in particular, going to their meetings, trying to defend my candidate from the craziness of his opponent. They are there. They are very helpful, and they're not out to get people. So I remember I'll never forget this, Tony, when we went in there and Lopresti was in there and he told Gary Cam, well, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
That's a battle with him.
Yeah. Well, let me let you go, Tony. You've been generous with your time. I appreciate your hour, and I'll link you on it once I get it up and create a link for YouTube, and maybe, that'll help to refer people over there. So there's a lot of great information. So I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
You're welcome, Amanda.
Thank you very much,
Welcome, Patty, Brett.
I'll save my 10 pages of notes.
You were writing away. I like that.
No,
Yeah,
I
she
like
is.
that.
You and Amanda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good night,
need anything?
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you
Good
very
night.
much.
Good night.